We have lost about 50% of the permanent snow in these high mountains. If we lose them here, we lose them for the planet. There is no other place to replace them. Ancient civilizations in the Andes already developed adaptation strategies to these types of conditions that we're experiencing now due to climate change. It's really exciting, to see them themselves finding solutions. The Andean Puna are the alpine high-altitude grasslands, which is at the foothills of glacier mountains. This is a territory where farmers in mountain communities raise their animals, key for the livelihood of people. This is also a landscape that has very important endemic plant species. Peru has 70% of the tropical glaciers of the world, and it's disappearing. This is a result, clearly, of climate change. People in the Andes have inhabited this territory for over 10,000 years. But what they're experiencing is outside their normal border, their normal framework. It's either too much rain or too little rain. It's either too hot or too cold. People feel an existential threat to their lives. I'm an anthropologist working with the Andes program of the Mountain Institute, Instituto de Montaña in Spanish. Yeah, the first time we visited the communities, we went there because they got in touch with us and mentioned that they had problems with their grasslands. They were getting dry, and they were having problems with raising their animals in the high Andes because of this issue. And when we visited them, they began to form the idea that what they wanted to do was to irrigate their lands. In my mind, no, I didn't say it out loud, but inside my mind I said, this doesn't make a lot of sense. You usually don't irrigate grasslands because they don't respond to irrigation very well. But then when we went there and realized that they were talking about was not irrigating the grasslands per se, but it was really actually feeding the underground water systems. And then it was for me an aha moment, realizing that this is a solution that was already in place hundreds of years ago when people experienced the same problem. They had these ancient technologies to manage water, and they themselves begin to explore ideas about how to restore those ancient technologies of water management in the high Andes. It's really exciting to see them themselves finding solutions to losing their water sources, losing their glaciers. And what they did was very simple. They built small dams, hold water in those dams during the rainy season. The water would seep down, feed the underground systems, and then appear in springs below the high mountains. And then they would divert this water to their irrigation, to their areas for drinking water, and so on. We realized that archaeologists were already beginning to also work on these systems. So what they did was took us to show us these mountain places built hundreds of years ago, way before the Spanish conquest, and show us how they could restore some of these areas. And we began working with them. It's really remarkable. It really, impressed me, very deeply, because the normal response is like, big scale. You bring cement, you build dams, build like a, heavily centralized system. But here, what we saw was simply storing water in certain specific places and then having water seep and feed the ground systems. And very quickly, by irrigating certain landscapes of the high Andes of the Puna, the water was stored underground and fed the springs below those areas. And that was very, very exciting. So our vision for the future is to support a network of mountain Andean communities so that they exchange their knowledge, their experience, and they become a force that can be, grow and multiply itself. And what's really beautiful, at least it was very moving to me, was to see that it was not just a technological solution, but it came together with, a cultural revival. They do their ritual ceremonies. They do what they call payment to their mountain gods. The mountain gods are disappearing, if you want, because the glaciers are being gone, but their sacred nature is still there. So it's really beautiful to see how a problem, climate change and the mountains, disappearing. This is very dramatic, but it's moving. It's moving to see how people get organized, find answers. And many cultures in other places around the world have also developed similar solutions in many other places. So I think that by documenting, by celebrating the knowledge and the capacity, the imagination and the science that mountain indigenous peoples have, not just in Peru, but all over the world, I think that it is viable to find solutions to the impacts of climate change.